Hi, everyone. So I've always found something really beautiful about wonder. So when I was little and I was looking under a microscope for the first time and I saw a cell dividing, I just thought it was the most incredible thing ever. And then when I saw two clear solutions mixed together and make this deep blue that you didn't even know that they held in their depths, I just found it to be the most fascinating thing. So I've always found a certain wonder in the little things that you can do. I found wonder in the ways that I could make a difference. And when I was really little, when my mom was teaching me my alphabet for the first time, I found it fascinating that 26 letters could come together and connect entire populations through language. It was the little things like that, like atoms. When I was first learning, when my brother was first teaching me, that I just thought, whoa, those tiny little things can make up everything? Everything. And then when I got to school and I started learning what cells were, I was learning about them being the building blocks of life, I was in love. I knew that this was what I wanted to do. Now, I think I was like a lot of kids, and probably a lot of you can relate to this, in that I was always really curious about something I was learning in school, whether it was cells or atoms or the alphabet. But I never really thought about pursuing it beyond what I learned in school. I mean, it was really easy to get caught up in that essay due next Monday or that problem set due on Friday, and I just saw a lot of horrified looks, so I think I just reminded a lot of you how much work you have. It gets a lot easier to stress about the little things, the problems and the homework. And it got really easy to forget about the vast world out there beyond school. It was just something I never really thought about. Now, it was easier to ignore it and tell myself that I'm just a kid, I don't know enough yet, I'm too young, I can't change anything. Now, that's just not true. When I was a freshman in high school, my grandfather was diagnosed with liver cancer. And that was when I really started wondering about how those tiny little cells that I was learning about in class could end up making a person so sick. I mean, it was something that I just couldn't understand then. And then I started reading up. I started looking at YouTube videos on cells. I started looking at how they divided. I started understanding how cancer started. And the biggest thing I could tell you that I took away from that was the fact that I started appreciating the millions of things that have to go right in those billions of cells that are coming together and being a person that have to go right for life to exist. I mean, if you think about it, it's just incredible that we're here. Like, all of you are here listening to TED Talks, but each of you are the whim of a billion cells to come together and just be you for a while. It's a really fascinating thought. So for me, learning about cancer for the first time was less about what went wrong and more about the miracle of all of the things that came together and usually went right. So the summer of my freshman year in high school, my grandfather actually ended up passing away of liver cancer, and that was something that ended up changing everything for me. At that point, I learned one of the most important things I have learned thus far. I learned to ignore, which sounds really strange, and your parents are probably going to hate me for saying this, but I learned to ignore what my mind was telling me at certain points. I learned to ignore that little voice inside your head, and I know a lot of us have heard it, that tell you that you can't do anything, that tells you that you're not smart enough. I learned to ignore that, and I decided, you know what, I might not know enough, but I'll learn along the way. I have to do something now. And that was one of the most important things that changed everything for me. That week, actually, I ended up writing my first email to a professor in my area, and I started off my email with, "Hi, my name is Shree Bose, and I'm 15 years old." And I'm pretty sure most professors don't read beyond that point. So I got rejected a lot. I got this long string of rejections, and finally, it was Dr. Alokananda Basu at the University of North Texas Health Science Center in Fort Worth, where I'm from, who said the first yes. Now, from there, I wish I could tell you it was all history, that I usually looked this intense in the lab every day. I just looked that way all the time, but that's just not true. In fact, here's a little secret. When I was first starting off, my first summer in the lab was a complete mess. I mean, within the first few weeks, I'm pretty sure I had dropped a lot of stuff I wasn't supposed to. I vaguely remember broken glass at some point, which I was responsible for. And I just generally did not know what I was doing. And that entire summer, I remember as this blur of just kind of reading everything I could find and just trying to understand. And even that final project that I pulled out at the end didn't win anything at the state science fair. And I remembered that I was completely crushed. I mean, here's this entire field that I thought I loved, that I thought I was going to be great at. I was really passionate about it. And it turns out I pretty much sucked at it. And that was a horrifying feeling. And I'm pretty sure I wrote a poem about it at some point. It was those years, you know, when you were pretty angsty. And I vowed that I would never do science fairs again. I was just like, this is not for me. And then the next summer, I remembered why I wanted to do research in the first place. I remembered that feeling of wanting to make a difference, of being excited, of feeling the sense of wonder at, wow, I wonder how that happens. And despite my poems and my struggles, I went back, and that was the summer that changed everything. That year, I actually started working on ovarian cancer, and my project ended up showing that this one energy protein in the cell called AMP kinase is really important in how ovarian cancer cells stop responding to chemotherapy. And that's a result that has huge implications, not only for future research, but also for treatment. And it was just one of those things where I was looking at my project, and I remember looking up at this, and each of those little dots, each of the green and yellow and red dots, is a cancer cell dying. And I remembered looking at that and thinking, wow, that is something that can make a valid difference in somebody's life. It was that kind of thing that just made me think, where are the limits? Who is to say where we draw the line of what is possible? From there, I entered this project into the Google Global Science Fair, which is a completely online international science competition, and I was incredibly honored as the grand prize winner in 2011, the first Google Science Fair. And after that just came a whirlwind of really incredible opportunities, from being named one of Glamour magazine's Amazing Young Women of 2011. I make very photogenic faces, just so you know. Very photogenic. From being one of Glamour magazine's Amazing Young Women of 2011 to getting to meet President Obama twice. He's very tall, for anyone who's wondering out there. Right down to getting to be a part of Harvard's class of 2016. It's just been a string of really incredible opportunities. But the best part hasn't been the awards. It hasn't been all of the accomplishments, but it's been the people that I've gotten to meet along the way. I mean, these are people like, I got to talk to a crowd of ovarian cancer survivors who came up to me and said, you know, they got ovarian cancer when they were 20 or 30, and that they were excited that somebody was working on this, that somebody cared, and somebody was passionate. It's that sort of thing, seeing young people passionate about what affects them that can change the world. It makes a huge, huge difference. And that's something that I want all of you to think about today. The story of me following what I loved shouldn't be something that's very uncommon. It's about finding really what you love. It's about finding what makes you stop and go, wow, I can do something with that. It's about the things that you go up to your friends and you're just like, isn't this the coolest thing ever? And they're like, what? It's that moment. Find that, whatever it is, whether it's biology or chemistry or a cool business idea or tech idea. And even if the people around you, your parents, your teachers, your friends, aren't as excited as you about it, go on and be passionate about it anyway, because that's the best kind of feeling. Though, do be prepared. I'm not going to tell you it's easy. You will hear a lot of no's along the way, and not all of them are going to be other people. Sometimes they're going to be the no's that you tell yourself. Ignore those voices that tell you that you're too young, that you don't know enough. Use that, actually. Just because you are young, that means that you have a completely different perspective on things. You look at things, and you just say, oh my goodness, this technique is incredible, whereas these people who have been working with it for years are just like, oh, I'm used to this. You bring a certain wonder to everything you do. You learn the most doing what you love, so don't ever tell yourself that you're not smart enough to do something, because you will be. That's what makes the biggest difference. And finally, the biggest secret out there is the fact that you can make your own opportunities. My school didn't have science fairs, and I used that as my outlet for what I was curious about. And for all of us out here, no matter what age you are still young. And the best part of being young is the fact that you don't know yet what you're not supposed to be able to do. Think about that. So you can go out and do it anyway, even if you're not supposed to do it. You have that excuse. And you can make your own opportunities, and you can't be afraid to follow them. When I was first thinking about entering the Google Science Fair, I was actually kind of terrified, but my dad told me 7 of the most important words I've ever needed to hear. He told me, "You'll never know unless you try." Remember that. Always give yourself the chance to try. Persevere, enjoy, and as you grow up, let that kid inside of you, that part of you that still looks at the world with that sense of wonder and amazement, let that part of you keep imagining, because the world is a really, really big place. It's changing all the time, and it needs your dreams. So happy exploring.